news program coming to you live from Algiers with me, Mariam Zian, to the headlines. 2 martyrs were shot dead with Zionist bullets in Rafah and Khan Yunis, while several others were injured. Morocco growing outrage over the Makhzen's repressive policies against activists and anti-normalization opponents. Also coming up, Kiev announces its support for the U.S. proposal of a 30-day truce, while Russia says it's awaiting further communication from Washington. And Trump warns the EU against retaliatory tariffs, and the UK states it will keep all options open regarding Washington's move, while the German Chancellor calls the US tariffs wrong and promises a swift response. Hello and welcome back to the details of our program. First off, 2 Palestinians were shot dead on Wednesday morning with Zionist bullets in the cities of Rafah and Khan Yunis in the Gaza Strip. According to local Palestinian sources, 1 Palestinian succumbed to severe injuries caused by Zionist gunfire in Rafah, southern Gaza, while another died from wounds sustained by Israeli forces in the town of Khuza'a east of Khan Yunis. And this comes as the Zionist entity continues to violate the ceasefire agreement in the besieged enclave. The Palestinian Health Ministry in Gaza stated that 12 martyrs arrived at hospitals in the Gaza Strip in the past 24 hours. The ministry revealed that the bodies of 5 martyrs were recovered, while 7 new martyrs fell and 14 people were injured during the past 24 hours. The ministry also noted that the total death toll from the Zionist aggression on Gaza has risen to 48,515 martyrs and 111,941 injuries since October 7, 2023. The Palestinian Islamic Resistance Movement Hamas stated that it is awaiting new steps from the Doha negotiations to implement the second phase, resume the entry of aid, and ensure a definitive end to the war. Hamas spokesperson Abdul Latif al-Qanu affirmed that Israel has failed to uphold the ceasefire agreement, adding that the movement has shown flexibility and engaged positively throughout the negotiations to hold the Israeli occupation accountable to the agreement and respect the demands of the Palestinian people. Also, the Palestinian Resistance Movement Hamas confirmed that the use of water and food as weapons against innocent civilians represents a dangerous escalation, noting that it is part of a systematic effort to deepen the humanitarian disaster in the Gaza Strip. In a statement issued on Telegram on Wednesday, Hamas revealed that the continued cutting of electricity to the Gaza Strip for more than 16 months, followed by the recent cutting of the limited electricity line that feeds the desalination plant in Deir al-Balah, constitutes a war crime that threatens a potential drought, a catastrophe in the region.
The cutting off of water and electricity to the Gaza Strip and the prevention of the entry of food, relief, and medical supplies for the 11th consecutive day constitutes a grave violation of the ceasefire agreement and a blatant violation of international and humanitarian law. The silence of the international community and its failure to bear its moral and legal responsibilities regarding these crimes encourages the occupation to continue its criminal policies.
Hundreds of American students protested at the University of California, Los Angeles, and in the city of Atlanta, demanding the release of Columbia University student Mahmoud Khalil. The protesters expressed their opposition to the arrest of the pro-Palestinian student by the U.S. administration or the U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement, and the cancellation of his permanent residency card, the green card, due to his involvement in pro-Gaza demonstrations condemning the Zionist aggression on the Gaza Strip.
It's really important for us right now to be out here because basically ICE kidnapped Mahmoud Khalil in the middle of the night from basically his headquarters, his apartment in Columbia on campus. And we're here to say that basically all students have a right to free speech, and that this is a politically motivated attack against him, as he was a organizer on campus who they were against the genocide by Israel against the Palestinian people.
And the repression against anti-normalization activists in Morocco persists, with authorities cracking down on solidarity with the Palestinian people. A Tangier court sentenced activist Radwan al-Qastit to 2 years in prison over his pro-Palestine social media posts. The Justice and Spirituality movement condemned the harsh ruling, calling it part of a broader campaign against activists and civil society figures. The group demanded al-Qastit's immediate release, denouncing his detention as politically motivated and aimed at silencing dissent.
The decision of the Tangier Court of First Instance to sentence activist Radwan al-Qastit to 2 years in prison over his posts in support of Palestine, his advocacy for rights and freedoms in Morocco, and his opposition to normalization with the Zionist entity is an unjust ruling that falls within a broader state-led crackdown on activists, political dissidents, and civil society actors. We call for the immediate release of al-Qastit and express our strong condemnation of this arrest, which we deem political in nature and aimed at undermining freedom of expression and silencing dissent. Furthermore, this arrest and trial are part of ongoing efforts to restrict free speech and target activists opposing normalization.
Moroccan human rights organizations denounced the trials targeting activists defending human rights in the country. In a statement Wednesday, the Moroccan Association for Human Rights strongly condemned the prosecution of journalists, bloggers, and activists, warning of a potential social explosion if authorities continue policies that undermine fundamental rights.
We strongly condemn the trials targeting numerous journalists, bloggers, and human rights activists, as they reflect a dangerous decline in rights and freedoms driven by the Moroccan state's escalating repression and relentless efforts to silence all dissenting voices opposing its anti-human rights policies. We also denounced the aggressive campaign recently launched by the state in various cities, villages, and rural areas, where authorities have issued eviction orders, demolished homes, and displaced residents through the Ministry of Interior's agencies. These actions have taken multiple alarming forms, affecting many Moroccan families across different regions of the country.
Russian parties and institutions have affirmed their support for the Sahrawi people's struggle for self-determination and independence, outlining steps to raise awareness of their cause in Russia. According to the Sahrawi news agency, Polisario Front representative in Russia, Ali Salim Mohammed Fadel, briefed a member of the Communist Party Central Committee and officials from the Family Tree organization on the Sahrawi people's suffering under Moroccan occupation. He has also been invited to participate in an international forum in Moscow on March 19, 2025, under the theme Russia, India, and Africa: Lessons from the Past and Prospects for the Future. And Algerian President Mr. Abdelmajid Tebboune received on Wednesday Mohamed Ahmed Kissouli, senior advisor to the Ugandan president for Middle Eastern Affairs, along with his delegation, according to a statement from the Algerian presidency. The meeting was attended by senior Algerian officials, including Minister of State and Foreign Affairs Ahmed Attaf, Presidential Advisor for Religious Affairs Mohamed Hassouni, Minister of Religious Affairs Youssef Belmehdi, and President of the Higher Islamic Council, Mabrouk Zaid Al Khair. Kissouli highlighted Uganda's interest in benefiting from Algeria's expertise in religious affairs and strengthening bilateral trade relations.
The meeting with the President of the Republic was good and fruitful. The purpose of this visit is to benefit from Algeria's experience in the management of religious affairs, especially with regard to the organization and the development of this experience to a level that matches global progress. Thank God, His Excellency the President approved the matter and instructed his advisors to properly study the issue after Ramadan, and Uganda will then benefit from Algeria's experience in the management of religious affairs.
And today, Algerian President Mr. Majid Tebboune chaired a working meeting to assess the state of air transport, particularly the status of Air Algeria and Tassilé Airlines. A statement from the Algerian presidency clarified that following the meeting, it was decided to establish a company specializing in domestic air transport under the umbrella of Air Algeria. Algeria stressed the interest of developing countries in benefiting from technology transfer, trade exchanges, and investment. Addressed in the 2025 high-level meeting of the Development Cooperation Forum held in the UN headquarters in New York, Algeria's representative underlined that Algeria has set up a monitoring agency in order to establish a constructive partnership, especially in its surrounding region and the African continent as a whole.
Algeria has included the 2030 Agenda and the 2063 Agenda of the African Union in its national strategy. Additionally, it has placed the Algerian Agency for International Cooperation for Solidarity and Development as an institution that oversees the preparation and implementation of the national policy for international cooperation in various areas, in order to establish a constructive partnership, especially within its region and the African continent. My country is firmly convinced that the development of the South can only be achieved through fairness, respect of sovereignty, and equality in economic relations with the North. I thank you.
The Libyan National Security Council has reaffirmed its firm rejection of the resettlement of irregular migrants in Libya. In the statement, the Council warned of growing dangers of irregular migration and its negative impact on Libya's national security, stressing that the phenomenon has become a serious threat to the country's political, economic, social, and security stability. And details on growing protests against French Interior Minister Otayo's anti-migrant policies with Hossein Berkan.
Day by day, the racist policies of France's far right, led by Interior Minister Retailleau, become more evident in their crackdown on migrants. While Retailleau portrays himself as a dominant leader in French politics, the Élysée remains silent or subtly aligned with his views. These actions have sparked strong opposition from labor unions and organizations. In response, the Solidaire Labor Union has called for a gathering in Clermont-Ferrand to protest what they described as Retailleau's war against migrants and his push to abolish migrant regularization, policies rooted in far-right ideology.
We reject this war on migrants. Retailleau, along Justice Minister Gérald Darmanin, aims to make regularization nearly impossible. This would expand the number of undocumented people, deprive them of rights, and ignore the fact that many work in essential sectors.
By creating bureaucratic hurdles and imposing extreme conditions on residency, Retailleau's policies frame migrants as opportunists seeking benefits. The labor union, representing all professional sectors in France, denounces these policies as stupid and xenophobic.
Now Retailleau even wants to cut state-funded medical aid for migrants. This is a vile and xenophobic move. Demonizing foreigners misleads the public and weakens opposition to neoliberal policies.
Opposition to Retailleau's anti-migrant stance extends beyond unions. Left-wing parties condemn these policies as the work of a small-minded bureaucrat, not a statesman, arguing he's trapped in his own racism and xenophobia.
And Ukraine has accepted a U.S. proposal for a 30-day ceasefire with Russia after long talks in Saudi Arabia, Riyadh. This could be a big step toward peace in the war that has been going on for over a year. Usama Hayati has more.
In a significant diplomatic development, Ukraine has tentatively accepted a U.S. proposed 30-day ceasefire with Russia, following marathon negotiations mediated by Saudi Arabia and the city of Jeddah. The U.S. proposal includes a promise to immediately resume military aid and intelligence sharing with Kyiv, support that had been paused due to earlier disagreements between the two nations. In exchange, Ukraine would agree to a temporary truce, which could be extended if both parties consent.
Україна прагне миру.
Ukraine accepts this proposal. We consider it positive, and we are ready to take such a step. The United States must persuade Russia to do the same.
The proposal has been cautiously welcomed by European leaders. EU Foreign Policy Chief Josep Borrell emphasized the need for strong security guarantees to back any agreement, warning that the ceasefire must not undermine Ukraine's long-term sovereignty or security.
But very importantly, and I said it, Ukraine, ceasefire. Ukraine, ceasefire. Just agreed to a little while ago. Now we have to go to Russia and hopefully President Putin will agree to that also.
Russia, however, has responded with uncertainty. Moscow insists that any resolution must address what it calls the root causes of the conflict, including its opposition to NATO's presence in the region. Russia has long viewed Ukraine's aspirations to join NATO as a direct threat to its own security.
Europe and the UK.
The presence of NATO forces under any flag and in any capacity on Ukrainian territory represents the same threat as NATO expansion. We will not accept the presence of NATO forces in Ukraine under any conditions.
All eyes are now on the Kremlin as the world waits to see how Russia will respond to the truce proposal. While the potential ceasefire is a promising step, many questions remain. For now, the international community is holding its breath, hoping for a breakthrough that could save countless lives and bring stability to the region. As the situation develops, further updates are expected from all parties involved.
And Russia said it is carefully reviewing statements made following the conclusion of the talks between the US and Ukraine. Kremlin spokesperson Dmitry Peskov stated that Moscow does not want to jump to conclusions regarding the proposed truce, adding that Russia first needs to receive information from the US.
I can tell you that we are carefully studying the statements made as a result of the talks and are familiarizing ourselves with the text of the joint statement adopted in Jeddah. We assume that, as was said yesterday in Jeddah, Secretary of State Rubio and National Security Advisor Waltz will inform us through various channels in coming days about the details of the negotiations that took place and the understandings reached.
The Secretary of State Marco Rubio emphasized the importance of European allies having a role in any potential peace agreement in the Russia-Ukraine war. In a press statement on Wednesday, Rubio noted that Russia would seek the lifting of European sanctions imposed after the war began. His remarks came during his return from Saudi Arabia, where he met with the Ukrainian delegation on Tuesday. Following the meeting, Kiev announced its approval of a 30-day truce. And China has expressed hope for reaching a fair and lasting solution to the war in Ukraine. The Chinese Foreign Ministry spokesperson Mao Ning stated that Beijing supports all efforts that contribute to a peaceful resolution of the crisis, expressing her country's willingness to continue working with the international community to play a constructive role in this regard.
China supports all efforts conducive to a peaceful settlement of the Ukraine crisis. We expect and hope that all parties involved could reach a fair and lasting solution that is acceptable to all. China is also willing to continue working with the international community to play a constructive role in the political settlement of the crisis.
US President Donald Trump vowed on Wednesday to respond to the European Union's threat of imposing counter-tariffs on $28 billion worth of U.S. goods starting next month, following his decision to impose blanket tariffs on steel and aluminum imports. At the start of a meeting with Irish Prime Minister Michael Martin in the Oval Office, Trump said Ireland, a member of the European Union, was among countries taking advantage of the U.S.
And as you know, we're going to be doing reciprocal tariffs. So whatever they charge us, we're charging them. Nobody can complain about that. Whatever it is, it doesn't even matter what it is. If they charge us 25 or 20% or 10% or 2% or 200%, then that's what we're charging them. The tariffs that we're talking about, and again, reciprocal. I think that the tariffs, there are some cases where they're a little beyond reciprocal because, we've been abused for a long time as a country. We have been abused really for a long time, and we will be abused no longer.
British Prime Minister Keir Starmer expressed disappointment over US President Donald Trump's decision to impose tariffs on steel and aluminum imports. Speaking during a parliamentary Q&A session, Starmer acknowledged his concern over the tariffs, but said London is negotiating a trade deal while keeping all options open, emphasizing that his government will adopt a pragmatic approach to the issue.
On the question of tariffs, obviously, like everybody else, I'm disappointed to see global tariffs in relation to steel and aluminium. But we will take a pragmatic approach. We are, as he knows, negotiating an economic deal which covers and will include tariffs if we succeed. But we will keep all options on the table.
And Germany's outgoing Chancellor Olaf Scholz criticized the trade policy of the United States on Wednesday and said the European Union would respond swiftly to tariffs imposed under President Donald Trump. At a press conference in Berlin, alongside European Council President Antonio Costa, Scholz affirmed that his country needs fewer trade barriers, not more, which is why he thinks the US customs regulations are wrong.
Wenn jetzt Zölle an die Stelle gesetzt werden, schadet das.
And let me be clear about it in view of current developments. We need fewer trade barriers, not more, which is why I think the US customs regulations are wrong, and we will respond to them appropriately and quickly. We will now examine the Commission's proposals. We're in close contact with the Commission and the other member states. The Commission has also made it clear that it is ready to negotiate with the US. I very much welcome this, of course.
Canada announced the imposition of a 25% tariff on products manufactured in the US, valued at approximately $21 billion. Canadian Finance Minister Dominique Leblanc stated that the new tariffs are equivalent to the US tariffs and will come into effect on Thursday. The retaliatory tariffs target US steel and aluminum products in response to the tariffs imposed by the Trump administration on Canadian steel and aluminum. The Chinese Foreign Ministry announced that China will hold a meeting in Beijing on Friday with Russia and Iran regarding the Iranian nuclear issue. Chinese Foreign Ministry spokesperson Mao Ning indicated at a regular press conference that the Russian and Iranian deputy foreign ministers will participate in the meeting, which will be chaired by Chancellor or Chinese Vice Foreign Minister Ma Chaoshu. The meeting will be followed by a closed-door meeting of the Security Council in New York on the same day, which will discuss Iran's increase in its uranium stockpile.
China will hold a joint meeting between China, Russia, and Iran on the Iranian nuclear issue in Beijing on March 14. Vice Foreign Minister Ma Jiaoshu will share the meeting. Russian Deputy Foreign Minister Sergei Ryabkov and Iranian Deputy Foreign Minister Kazem Gharib Abadi will also attend. The three parties will exchange views on the Iranian nuclear issues and other issues of common interest.
The president of the Algerian Football Federation, Walid Sadi, described Algeria's return to the quarters of the Confederation of the African Football as an achievement that resulted from collective efforts. In a statement published by the Algerian Football Federation on Wednesday, Sadi confirmed that this achievement reflects the FAF's commitment to keeping up with all the great efforts made by the country's higher authorities to develop sports and build sport facilities and infrastructures.
This achievement is the result of collective efforts, reflecting our commitment to keeping up with the great efforts made by the country's authorities to develop sports and build sports facilities and infrastructures. As I stated earlier, it was essential for us to align with this dynamic in order to return our country to its natural position and deserved status. What has been achieved today is not a personal gain, but a gain for all of Algeria, and it marks that Algeria is on the right path to solidifying its position and enhancing its effective presence on the international stage. I also reaffirm my commitment to working with determination and responsibility to harness all our capabilities to serve Algerian and African football. Long live Algeria. May Algeria always remain independent, strong, and victorious.
In the same context, Sadi extended his congratulations to all Algerians on his election to the Executive Committee of the Confederation of African Football, expressing special gratitude to Algerian President Abdelmajid Tebboune and everyone who supported him.
We congratulate Algeria first and foremost, and then the entire sports family, on the return of our country to the Executive Committee of the Confederation of African Football after a long absence. I thank everyone who supported me, especially President Abdelmajid Tebboune, all the country's high authorities, and the entire sports family.
Ladies and gentlemen, that's a wrap for tonight's program. Thanks for watching and have a great night.